Hey guys, what's up? Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/eggs show. That's EGGSSHOW. Audible has more than 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or just about any device you can imagine. As Eggs listeners, you can download a free audiobook today by visiting audibletrial.com/eggs show.
Hi guys, it's Matt with Silderman Solutions, and this is your Marketing Minute. So let's talk about Facebook. Do you have a Facebook business page? Have you noticed that less and less of your fans and followers are actually able to see your content? This is because of changes at Facebook. So what can you do about it? Well, I'm going to give you 3 basic ideas for how you can still interact with your fans and get them to see your content. Number 1 is make sure that you're creating content that they're actually interested in, that they will share or like or comment. Number 2, create a Facebook group. This allows you to create a community within the community and once again allows you to continue that relationship that you have with your fans and followers. Number 3, try Facebook Live. In case you haven't noticed, it will update users when you go live, and it will make that live stream available to them even after you're done. So those are my top 3 tips. And if those don't work for you, then yes, you may have to pay Facebook. It pays to pay Facebook. You may need to start advertising with Facebook. All right, guys, take care.
Holy freaking crap. Hi, how you doing there? Peter Griffin from the animated show Family Guy. Now, obviously I'm not a real person, but listen to this. I love this podcast. Cartoon or not, it's the best business podcast around, so do yourself a favor and listen.
Oh, what do you know about business, fat man? You've never done anything in business other than lose money. Giggity, 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 the baby got you there, Peter. I'll tell you right now, sometimes they have some real hot ladies on there. Giggity, giggity. All right.
I listen for the business and the entrepreneurs that are going to benefit my community. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. They should all benefit the community. Oh, shut up, Joe. Tell you what, we'll have you show up if you need to tell us how to get up a flight of stairs in your chair. Probably shouldn't use that in the promo, but you know what? Listen to the podcast.
Bang ding ding, trademark. He come out 6'7" tall. Bang ding ding, 1 star. Ding dong ding dong ding dong ding dong ding dong ding. This is a perfect day.
Woke up to the sound of the garbage truck again. Upstairs neighbor's toilets leaking on my head. Cars broke down, I missed the bus, there runs a 10. I had a feeling this was a day to stay in bed. I finally left my pad right on the jumbo's cloud roof. A police officer pulled out his gun and said, I said, sir, you got the wrong guy. I guess it's just the perfect day. It's just the perfect day. No, 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 no,
Hey everybody, welcome to another exciting edition of Eggs. Today's guest is actually one I've been looking forward to for just a little bit. We're sort of phone call buddies. I actually have never met her before, but nonetheless, we spoke for about an hour online, and I feel like we're old pals. Our guest today is Chantel Soumis, and Chantel, correct me if I'm saying it wrong. Chantel is based out in the Midwest, out in Minnesota. Is that right?
Wisconsin.
It's all the same to us. We had a Minnesota guy earlier. So she's a self-proclaimed, although I'll back it up, she's a brand sorceress, differently abled advocate, top LinkedIn creator, speaker, and marketing-obsessed, bubbly and blessed superhero. And she's awesome, and I think you're going to have a great time talking to her, getting to know her. So without any further ado, let me introduce our guest, Chantel Soumis.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
How come she gets to be a superhero and I don't?
Ooh.
No, we had a guy we were talking about earlier that was talking about zombie partners in business, guys that just stand around and don't do anything but take all the credit. And I don't want to point at anybody in particular.
Hey, wait a second.
But you know, I mean, it's, you know, I don't want to make any grand declarations here, but I'm just saying. So anyway, let me kind of go back in time and talk a little bit about how I came across Chantel. It's maybe not even the most exciting story in the world, but basically I had been laid off from a previous job and had gone on a binge. Anybody who's listened to the show has heard me talk about this a little bit, so I won't go too deep. But basically I started reaching out to every person I could come up with who might be able to help move my career along. Business owners, CEOs, all kinds of people, anybody I could come up with that might be able to sort of help out.
And you found this random girl in Wisconsin.
Well, she popped up. She popped up as an influencer or as a something, some kind of marketer. She seemed interesting. She was publishing a ton of content on LinkedIn, and I was impressed. It didn't hurt that she was, cute and blonde and all that good stuff either. But nonetheless, she sort of, for whatever reason, was one of many people I reached out to. Chantel was, actually pretty assertive. She took my little, hi, how are you kind of greeting and basically said, hey, let's get on the phone. Let's visit. And it didn't take, it took a little bit of doing to actually get on the phone and sort of get that thing scheduled. But for people who know me, I'm super introverted. I'd have just sat behind the computer and never actually spoke to her. I'd have just sent her some emails back and forth, and that would have been
Well, it's almost the thing to do these days, talking
well,
on the phone.
It definitely would have been my move. And so Chantel gets me on the phone. We have a great conversation. I had a really good time getting to know her and learning more about her business, the work she does in marketing. She has a little marketing firm called Stardust Creative that you can jump on, check out. And then, of course, she's also got her own website, chantelsoumis.com. You can jump on all those places to learn more. But basically, she's this multifaceted marketer. She's a really interesting character, and I thought that it would be of real value to have her on the show. So after a little bit of begging and arm twisting, she was willing to do that. And so here we are today.
Yeah. Thank you for making the time. Really appreciate it. Tell me, since Ryan knows you, I have zero knowledge, like I said, I was watching YouTube videos before we jumped on with you. And so tell me a little bit about yourself.
Oh, sure. I'd love to. I've always been obsessed with marketing, and I say obsessed because it's like playing for me, right? I've always loved planning parties with my mom and theming things, and it's always been a really big piece of my heart. But it wasn't until a few years ago I started losing my vision. I was really stressed out with work. I was in a kind of a toxic environment and a team filled with girls who they get really insecure if they think you're going to overstep them in any way. And, we were growing so much. There was supervisor positions open and they were just not nice. So it was very stressful, and I searched for another position, and I was granted a position that was, 2 levels higher, double the pay, this dream job, right? And I accepted it. The job fell through 2 weeks into my 4 weeks notice, and I was at square one. And I could have accepted my job back, the job that I was at back. But I'm stubborn, and I, said, if I can get this role, I can get another one like it. So I went back to square one. I was jobless. I was under so much pressure. To add to things, I had a newborn at home that I had, invited into this world not too long before that. So I was under extreme stress, and my body started to give out. I ended up losing my vision completely. I lost my ability to walk, my ability to hear, my ability to feel things. It wasn't until, I was out of health insurance too. So I let it progress because I didn't have the money or the insurance to help me with this. And it wasn't until, of course, I was 24 and I still needed my dad to tell me, Chantel, we need to get you to the hospital. We need to get this figured out, right? So he took me in and we figured it all out after, hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical debt, that it was actually something called multiple sclerosis. And the tricky thing with MS is that it affects everybody different. No 2 cases are the same. There is no cure, but there are certain treatments that can help stop the progression. So it's a shake of the dice. You can roll, a full house and recover completely, or you could be stuck in a very deteriorating condition for the rest of your life. And I was just completely devastated. Aside from the stress, aside from not getting a job, I now had to apply for a job with a disability box. So that started a complete storm of more emotions, because every single time I applied for a job checking that box, nobody called me. Nobody emailed me for more. It was horrifying. So I went to my team, my community, right, of other people with chronic illness, people who've had cancer, who've gotten better, yada, yada. And I asked, what do they do? What do you do to get a job? And they said, disgustingly enough, just give up. Nobody's going to want you if you have a disability, because you have limitations now. And as soon as they see that on paper, they're going to think, no, bye. And that made me so angry. And when I get, I'm a passionate person. And when I get angry, I light things on fire, So I decided to do a little bit of an experimentation. And I applied for jobs religiously all over the area, even those that required an hour-long commute or more. And then I also decided to whisper into some recruiters' ears about how I'm actively looking for a job. And I'd call them, see how their family's doing, just really feed that relationship so that it blossomed. And at the end of 2 weeks, I had 2 job offers on the table, and they were incredible job offers. So it goes to show that the application process is completely broken. The society is distraught, especially with people who have disabilities who feel so unwanted and almost betrayed by society and what they've been growing up into and how they've been raised. It's just so unfortunate. So that's how I started voicing my anger and activity on LinkedIn, and that caught on like wildfire.
Well, and I think sorry to cut you off, Chantel.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to comment on that when I first met Chantel and sort of got to know her a little bit, this topic that she's talking about, and maybe it just really showed off my naivete, or I hadn't been around a lot of people with a lot of I guess sort of differently abled issues, but these kinds of it really is just kind of a discrimination. Like, it kind of didn't even occur to me that was a thing, And then hearing Chantel say it, it's like, well, of course, people would sort of discriminate. They would maybe not lean towards the person who's in a wheelchair versus somebody that's not. And it hadn't even occurred to me that it was such a major problem. And then after hearing Chantel's passion and everything about this, like, I was completely blown away. And so anyway, keep going. Right. But it was just such it makes me feel stupid to even cop to it. But I do think that for people who are at least on the same kind of IQ as I am, they were like, whoa, like, this is a thing, because you always hear in the news about the discrimination by race or by gender or by whatever, but you don't hear often about people being left out because they, are less mobile than somebody else or whatever their problem might be. And so anyway, so hearing Chantel tell this story, especially, in her case, she was pretty young, healthy otherwise, and she was like in a, demographic that would still be desirable as an employee. And here she was having these struggles because of this medical affliction. The whole story just kind of really took me back.
Yeah, to open a can of worms, right? I talk a lot about diversity and inclusion, and I realized how the people who are trying to promote diversity and inclusion seem to be even more biased than the general public. There's a lot of people who advocate for LGBTQ rights, plus rights, and a lot of people who advocate for ethnicity diversity, right? But it's so funny how when you say disability, all of a sudden they're just like, we're trying to advocate for ourselves. We need to get this fixed before we can work on this, Yeah. So it's kind of funny when in these inclusion clinics where there's still a butting of heads, even though we're all working towards.
Well, and what's interesting too is that the inclusion of people with disability almost supersedes race and gender and everything else, because all races, all genders, everybody could have these afflictions, So, right. It almost feels like it should be the tip of the spear versus the other way around.
Yeah, it's a really strange process in advocacy. There's enough to go around. We don't have to be fighting for the top of the queue. We can rise each other up and work together as a community. But because I found my voice and I started advocating for this, I started using LinkedIn and it just took off. And I had 500 followers at the beginning of last year. It's been an hour, or I'm sorry, it's been a year. And I'm already up to almost 30,000 followers because people actually care.
Yeah.
They actually are listening and they care. They want to make the world a better place because chances are, somebody who has a disability. Chances are you're related to somebody who has a disability, whether it's mental health and PTSD or it's something physical like overcoming cancer and having to deal with remission and relapse. These issues are everywhere. So it's inescapable. And that kind of built my personal branding foundation for helping people. I'm a brand strategist and I really love to build brands. It's the same foundation, whether it's a personal brand or a corporate brand. And I really love to empower people, whether they're in a transition for a job, they're in the differently abled community, and they're looking to position themselves as a superhero or a magician or brand sorceress in my case. But yeah, that's what really got me started with Stardust. It's not been too long, and I can't wait to see what the future brings.
What made you decide to use LinkedIn as your platform of choice?
Well, as you know, LinkedIn has this reputation of being very professional, right? It's the place where you go to publish your resume and search for jobs. But I wanted to make it a lot more visible that this is a really big issue in front of job seekers, also the people who are searching for candidates, recruiters, and those big companies that are looking for inclusive cultures or diverse cultures, because that's the thing right now, right? People are having these programs advocating for this for their companies, but they need to be able to live it in order to really preach it. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense, that you would be trying to basically reach these employers and these folks. And like I said, too, I mean, this wasn't something that I paid any attention to, but we're really involved with some different folks who are working very hard on the inclusion and trying to work really hard on being really open and diverse and making sure that their workforces and things are diverse. And it is funny, to your point earlier, about they almost become so focused on that diversity that then they start excluding other groups. And so it's really interesting how, even though you're doing it with the best intentions and, your heart's in the right spot, you actually end up cutting more people out by being so focused on inclusion.
It's you're working on your project and your head's down, you're grinding, and then the outside guy comes in and says, "Oh, you need to do this," and it's been staring you in the face for a year, and you just didn't notice it, kind of thing. But
cool. Well, so let's talk a little bit more about just. Let's kind of complete your story. So you suffer through all these problems with MS. You work through them. Obviously, you've recovered to some extent. I don't know how far along you've come, but I know that you're in a significantly better spot than you once were. Can you just kind of keep taking us through that? I remember when you and I spoke on the phone, you told me a little bit about just that job hunting process and what that was like. And I don't want to get too heartstringy or emotional around here. We keep it pretty light. But
I've been known to cry. It's a bad thing.
Yeah, he's really, really sensitive,
But, okay.
But at the same time, I think it's important for people to sort of hear about that struggle sort of firsthand. It's not just being passed down by somebody who's trying to do good. It's somebody who's actually lived it.
Okay, so when I was going through the diagnosis, I was devastated, to say the least. I was withering away. My entire body was deteriorating and I couldn't do anything about it. And being out of control, especially for somebody with a type A personality like mine, it was nauseating and the most depressing situation I've ever been in. In fact, when they told me it was either a brain tumor or multiple sclerosis, I was begging for a brain tumor because then we could operate on it. Then there was a system, and it was horrifying because I felt like I couldn't be a mom. I couldn't be a wife. being in a bed all day. I couldn't be a daughter. My parents would well up with tears every time they'd come visit because they'd see how miserable I was. And that hurt me more than anything, you know? I'd rather be the one in pain always versus anybody I love. And it got to the point where I didn't really have hope. I was so sad and I had nothing. I didn't have a promise of getting better. And I remember I was out on my porch just bawling. It was in the middle of summer, and I called the hospital and I said, listen, I need hope. I need medicine now. I need to try something now. I'm not going to wait for answers. I need hope. And they said, if you're really this distraught, you need to admit yourself. And that was my like, oh God, is it really, has it come to this? And I was like, you know what? I'm not really that serious right now. I'll take it day by day. And of course, what do you do when you are 24 and you still need your parents? You call mom, right?
Hey, I'm 35 and call mom.
Yeah, mom always knows. So I called mom and I was just desperate. I was just like, help. What can I do? I have this burning pain. I feel worthless. What do I do? And she said, sleep. Go to sleep. Sleep for as long as you possibly can sleep. Don't worry about the dogs. Don't worry about the baby. Don't worry about the husband. We'll take care of everything. Just sleep. And I remember sleeping for, it could have been days. And I'm pretty sure it was a couple days, 3 days maybe. Getting up to, eat, of course. And I remember 3 days later, after I was rested, that I finally felt like this sense of clarity, that I can get through this. I'm going to be a badass for not just myself, but for my family, my parents, my son, and my husband. And it was hard because it was this fear of not being able to see. I had just had this beautiful baby boy with the most magical green eyes that I've ever seen. And I had this fear that I would never be able to look into those little blue eyes or those green eyes again. And it tortured me inside. Like, that was the worst. And then when I started to lose my hearing, it was like, I'm never going to be able to hear his cute little voice say mommy. And it just kept eating me up. But then I started using that me being devoured as fuel to get my shit together and be a better person, be stronger mentally because of this crap that I've obviously been dealt, right? And I couldn't get help or support or hope from the doctors. So my dad and everybody in the community, as soon as they find out you're sick with something, they send you all this information. And I found a lot of solace in diet. I changed my diet completely. My boss actually introduced me. I ended up getting a position that I told you about through the recruiters. And my boss introduced me to the keto diet. Mm-hmm. And 2 weeks after the keto diet, I was able to start walking better. Like, my leg wasn't dragging as much. I also stopped having seizures because I was having seizures. And a lot of other really cool things. And I started studying neuroplasticity. There's this really cool book by Gary John Bishop. Are you familiar? It's called Unfuck Yourself.
Yes, I've heard of it.
It is so good. Okay. It taught me about neuroplasticity and the power of your brain and how your brain is constantly rewiring itself if you continue to feed it yummy knowledge, right? Not using your lower brain, but your upper brain, which really impacts your thought processes. So I started working with thought reframing and turning any negative, dwelling, horrible thought I had into a positive. And I turned into that irritatingly optimistic person in class, but it was seriously life-saving. It made me feel so much better. When I woke up, I was practicing this attitude of gratitude unlike anything before. Before my illness, I didn't have confidence. I hated who I was. I'd look into the mirror and couldn't stand that girl. I was also 75 pounds heavier, so I was even more repulsive of myself. And I didn't feel like I had anything in me to continue. but changing your thought processes around just one thought at a time completely changed the game for me. So that and advocating and voicing my opinions and feelings towards this, seeking community on LinkedIn has been completely transformational. It's been amazing. So I don't know, does that give you a little more information? It's been a year since I started keto. I'm feeling great.
So the only change really was switching to keto and then a mind change, like this state of mind and being a positive person, and that kind of pulled you out of it?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, I have been taking a lot more vitamins. Vitamin D is supposed to combat it. I was on treatments that didn't work. So it's hard to say what exactly it's a contributor to the success of my remission. But basically, I'm going to say the diet, moderate exercise every single day. I actually can't work out because if my heart rate goes up, I have a pseudo relapse or an exasperation where I lose my vision again. And this eye is very, very, very weak. So if I lose my vision, it's gone. I can't. And there's also the risk of it not coming back. So I just walk every day. I don't do anything hardcore, but it helps. It releases so much stress. Stress management, I think, above all, is the most important factor to your overall well-being, whether it's your success at work and your productivity or your immune system. So definitely that and your gratitude. The attitude of gratitude is magical as is, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is I think what's so inspiring about your story is just sort of how well you've recovered from it. I mean, obviously this story is unique, and of course there are a lot of people who have recovered and come out of this kind of adversity and been, changed by it or whatever. But I think your sort of super positive, ultra bubbly response to such a hard time, I think, is what's so inspirational about what you're up to. But I think that's what comes through in a lot of your content.
The next thing that's inspirational is you've taken that and you spun it into this, I'm going to help other people who are in a similar position as me. And that right there is inspiring, because instead of just looking out for number one, you're looking out for everyone. And that says a lot about your character. So props.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
It wasn't until getting stories back from other people in the community that I really started to feel like this is something I need to stick with. People who have children that have really chronic diseases or forms of autism that are those caretakers, and they have to go to work every day and work a normal life. But as soon as they get home, they're taking care of their children, their parents, and the caretaker role is a whole other side of things that professionals don't see because we don't open up as a community and support each other like we should.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. And so let's, I guess, transition then from here. So with all this backstory and knowing who you've become, obviously you came out of all of that so much better prepared to go into sort of life as an entrepreneur. Let's talk a little bit about, where your interests were that took you into sort of this marketing channel that you're in. Obviously, your advocacy and stuff sort of maybe was a natural progression into this. But let's talk a little bit about your business and what you do and why you do it.
Sure. So I've been in marketing for as long as I can remember. Growing up, my mom and I would make little handmade candy jars and sell them at craft shows, and we'd figure out cute ways to promote them and sell them. And I remember one time we had a line all the way down this row of booths at a craft fair, people waiting to purchase these things. And it gave me the sense of magic, right? This idea of being able to create something and then have people love it. It just was this beautiful feeling. So I got addicted to that and started marketing at their accounting firm, by doing special events and working with a baker in the area and designing cakes with our logo on it and hand delivering them to clients for appreciation. All of these little things just meant so much to me. And I just kept going, more and more professionally, getting different positions at different corporations, testing it out and really learning as I went. And it wasn't until the job that I got after my diagnosis that really gave me that brand strategy. So I started branding software for companies to use. They white label it, right? So they put their logo on it, and then I help them with the collateral and campaigning and all of this stuff. And just looking at the metrics behind it, being able to analyze all of the activity to see how successful it was so magical as well. It's another like treat, my love language is words of affirmation, right? So if I can see that I did a good job, or if somebody says you did an amazing job, I'm floating on air for weeks, right? So having that ability to show that in my job just was very addictive. And that's why I started Stardust, because it's just a gift. As silly as it sounds, it's something that I'm just really good at. For the first time in my life, I'm actually good at something, In swim team, I was always getting the participation flags or
you came in second to last. Yay.
I needed something. But this is the first thing that I'm actually really good at. And thankfully, I can just invest myself. Also, not having your vision for a while and having it back, I have so much more attention to detail. Sure, I can't see hues of red and different things very well because of the optic nerve damage, but I have the ability to really explore and appreciate so many different concepts of design, as well as copy, to make it more touching and engaging. And user experience design is something that I was trained in from the Nielsen Norman Group. And it's something that I hold true to my heart, knowing that you want to serve your buyer. You want to serve your customer. You want them to be as delighted as possible, right? You're not here to just make a sale. You're here to keep them for future sales or for the whole length of the relationship. So that's my goal, is to build those connections more than just a business.
I like that. How long, have you been running your business before you got MS, or did you start it after?
No.
Okay. Can you talk about getting your first client and building the business from nothing to what it is now, and then how MS has affected that? Because it's hard enough for just me, me and Ryan starting a business. That's hard enough on its own, but let alone you got a kid and you're dealing with MS. That's got to be rough.
Oh my gosh, it's not even the surface. Okay, so
right.
Let's get started here. Roll up my sleeves. So I got started because I was actually getting approached by a lot of people in the area that had heard that I'm a marketer and I do these projects, and it started as freelance. Then I started my Stardust Creative LLC on my birthday because I said, I have these milestones. I gotta meet them. I gotta be my own boss. And from there, just the momentum on LinkedIn. I'm telling you, if people aren't using LinkedIn as part of their strategy, they're shooting themselves in the foot, because there are so many people out there who have needs, and those needs are lit. They're ignited by those conversations and those connections. So having people see me, see that I'm dedicated, see that I'm a personality fit, for their company, or somebody that they might actually want to work with because I'm so passionate. That's also a big tool as well. So using a specific content strategy has been extremely transformational for the business itself. Within the first 3 months, I had over $1 million in revenue generating opportunities at my door. And I couldn't deal with all of that on my own. Are you kidding me? So it was also knowing more connections in the community that I could pass these contacts off to develop those relationships as well. So definitely building the community, having ongoing conversations. I try to have 2 calls a day, discovery calls a day, 1 at lunch, 1 on my commute home, 5 days a week. So that's 10 new connections. That's 40 new connections a month. And that's definitely been an attribute to the success. It's, for me, I also have the stress management is really important. So practicing that gratitude, that mindset is really, really, really important. Diet, so important. Taking time for yourself and self-love, taking a bath. That's amazing.
Now you're talking my language.
It's so cool to eat a pint of ice cream when you feel crappy, but it's not going to make you feel good in an hour or a week,
it's true.
right?
No, baths are Mike's love language. So.
Yes.
Big clawfoot tub, and I'm a happy man.
Yeah, little matcha tea and a nice warm bath drawn.
Oh, it sounds so nice.
Well, especially it's getting late.
Well, let's wrap this up. I gotta go.
Yeah, somebody get my tub started. So while you were talking about that, I want to sort of maybe peel off or segue a little bit into some stress techniques, like ways of managing stress. We're joking about the bath, although the bath is probably a great place for people to unwind.
Coffee.
Yeah, as I'm holding my mug with two hands, by the way. So baths are an obvious way, but you live a stressful life. I have two boys. I understand that, having kids is stressful, and having a relationship and a family is stressful, and doing all these things, really compound. And, how do you balance all that plus all this new business? I liked what you said about you do your discovery call at lunch and on your commute home. So you're sort of filling what would otherwise maybe be dead time with, something productive. But, can you talk a little bit about, how you manage your day-to-day stress? I mean, obviously you can't take a bath every day. Or maybe you can. I don't know. Maybe that's the move.
Or maybe you can.
It's called jacuzzi, Ryan.
Yeah, right. Jeez. Yeah, I got to get a hot tub.
I wish. So I believe in a calendar. I believe in scheduling as much as I possibly can because
that would
it keeps
be that
me
A-type
focused.
personality, right?
What's that?
Oh, I said that would be that A-type personality, right?
Oh, yeah. Tell me about it. But it also keeps me focused and less distracted. I also avoid my phone during the day because I know that's a big distraction with social media, with even answering phone calls. If I have to answer a phone call that's not scheduled, it's going to take me at least 20 minutes to refocus and get into the zone again of productivity. So I ignore my phone calls. I'm sorry. You got to leave a voicemail if it's not scheduled. And then getting back to that voicemail is a whole nother story.
Sounds familiar.
But walking has been amazing. Walking lets go of so much stress. It also, anytime I'm doing some form of physical activity, that's when I get the best thinking done, a lot of the creativity, mindfulness, yoga. I know it sounds so cheesy to do mindfulness exercises, or what I thought was super cheesy, total hocus pocus, was visualization exercises. I thought that was so silly until I started doing it, and it was brilliant. It was so cool. It gets you visualizing the future, visualizing your success, putting yourself in that position, seeing you do it, and then verbalizing it. That power is incredible. So,
well,
yeah.
So one of our coworkers here has mentioned yoga a few times. He's pretty big into it. So in an effort to kind of just have some common ground and be able to talk about it, I've never gone into a yoga studio. I always thought it was like, let's just go and stretch, and it's like
Namaste.
that's what I thought it was stretching, right?
Yeah,
and
you got to go, except for the grandmas will make you feel horrible.
I know
because they're
gonna,
all so much better than you'll be.
So I bought this audio book called The Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, and there's so much more to yoga that I never even thought, mind blowing. It's a whole state of being. It's like reinvent yourself and just be a cool person, and I like it. It's I'm excited to learn more, put it that way. So,
it's endless.
I listened to it last week, and it's like okay, I evidently need to spend a lot of time researching this because very entry level.
It's okay.
Yeah, pretty deep
level.
topic. yeah, pretty deep topic, the yoga. So one of the things too that you mentioned sort of was born of you coming out of sort of your affliction. And I don't want to say coming out of it, because I guess you still struggle with some things, or there's sort of residual effects or whatever. So I don't want to downplay that. But obviously you're much further along now than you were, and so coming out of that, you said you discovered sort of personal branding, and you started doing work on yourself as you were coming out as an advocate, and you were coming out as a business owner or as a marketer. Can you talk a little bit about personal branding, what it is, what people should be doing that they're not doing, You mentioned, using LinkedIn as a platform might be one example. And, just other things like that might be of value in the sort of the personal branding space.
Sure, absolutely. So a lot of times when people get into a certain position or career or stage in life, they feel stuck, right? It's kind of that like where you would normally pull in a life coach, except I can help you with a lot less work, a lot less time commitment, a lot less money, because people just feel like they're not different. They're not special. And I feel, especially with the past that I've had and lacking a hope, that it's extremely important to feel special. It's extremely important to define your differentiators, no matter what. If you're in transition, if you're looking for jobs, if you're trying to get more speaking gigs, no matter what, you should always really see that you have so much to offer the world. Here's the brilliant thing is that we're all one person, right? You're one person, you're one person, I'm one person. But in the entire universe, there's only one of us. There's only one with our soul, with our heart, with our past, with our stories. And that makes us pretty darn special, even though there's so many of us on this planet. And making sure that I can dig in and uncover something that is extremely monumental for this person that they've probably never even thought of before is the most rewarding experience. It's not just rewarding for me, but it's empowering for people that realize that, holy crap, they have a superpower. They have 3 superpowers. And that's a way to connect further with people, with generating business or reaching those career goals. And a lot of that stems from, a lot of people wouldn't know this, but back in the day, I have my clients visualize their favorite memory. They go back in their past, they walk down a hallway with images, and they look for their favorite memory on the wall. And through that memory, we'll talk about it. And with that memory, I'll get clues about what means the most to them. Are they with their dad fishing on a boat at dawn in the middle of nowhere on a lake? That would show me that they're really rooted to natural elements and being in nature. They also love family and respect family, which might be a really big note for community. So certain elements that build them. Also having different like notes or keys that they may have left in their past that they can retie to, that builds a connection, that builds their strength and their overall package of their brand. It seems silly to talk about people like brands or products, but really we are. I mean, especially when we're trying to sell ourselves as a relationship or as a sales representative tied to a business. That's what we're trying to sell ourselves, trying to get people to like us and appreciate us and know that we have something to offer. So that's something that I do with personal branding. A lot of people don't realize this, but when you're dedicated to a plan or a marketing strategy, consistency is everything. You can't just post one video a month and expect people to like it, follow, share. You have to constantly commit. And that I suggest for LinkedIn best strategies would be 3 times a week, maybe, without being too redundant, and constantly engaging with your community.
Yeah, I'm more that once a month, once every other month guy. I need to be better. I honestly can't remember the last time. I got real hot and heavy there for a minute, and I was on it every day. I was publishing stuff all the time, but I'm really bad about that, and it's horrible because I run a marketing company. Like I should be doing more for myself.
On Facebook, I'm pretty good about, or I used to be pretty good about posting all the time because it was always complaining about it, bullshit that you shouldn't really, it's like whatever. Here's Facebook. On LinkedIn, you got to be professional, and so now I just know I'm not that guy, so I just don't.
You'd be surprised. Yeah, you guys are so funny because you have so much content, having a podcast too. Gosh, get out there. Start promoting some of this out there.
Well, and that's honestly the biggest thing, or the worst thing is, so we've started live streaming this just in the last, I guess.
Oh, you didn't know this, by the way, but you're live streaming. You're
no, she had to sign. She had to click the consent. She knows what she got into. so we've just started doing this video component. Neither of us like being on camera.
I hate it. Drives me nuts.
You can tell because we both have a face for radio. But we, nonetheless decided the video content is key and we need to start generating content. So we're doing just the audio podcast, but recently we've started doing video and it's going good so far. But our biggest problem, and it's just kind of a byproduct of time and available resources, is we do the show, we publish the show, but then like we never do anything with it. You know what I mean? And so there is like a lot of video that we could be pulling and a lot of audio that we could be pulling and doing things with. We're just not real good about it. And I think part of it is just, this is like a side gig. This isn't our full-time offering, and basically we started doing this as a way to, develop expertise or start sort of, putting ourselves out there as experts in different fields, also connecting with experts in other fields and learning from them, so it's a bit of a networking opportunity, gives us an opportunity to sit down and visit with people who have achieved different things that we're interested in. And so it does a lot of things for us, but and maybe I probably shouldn't speak for Mike, but for me, it's, I don't know, like my itch is being so scratched by the show as it is that I don't feel compelled to draw more people. Like I'm so happy with the people who do interact with the show and the people who do come on the show and things like that. Like I don't even feel like I want to push it on people. It's like I'm already receiving so much from it. It's like, what could I possibly get by
Likewise, I'm not trying to be like the celebrity person. Hey, I got this podcast. Da, 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 da. It's like I'm doing this to learn. I'm doing this to network. I'm doing this to meet awesome people and kind of see where that goes.
Yeah.
Right. But let me stop you right there because you guys are getting a lot from it. But don't you think that your listeners are getting?
No, I don't care about the listeners.
That was Mike, by the way. Mike.
That's the beauty of this is that, sharing it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be self-serving. Like for me, my advocating is to empower others. So you guys sharing yours can encourage other people to be educated and learn to love this as well. So
yeah,
don't sell yourself short. Come on.
Well, we try not to sell ourselves too short, but I mean, we definitely, aren't as good as we should be in terms of marketing the show. We definitely need to be improving in that, but we're really happy with the way things go and the guests who come on the show and everything. And it's been a very satisfying experience, even without that component.
Nice.
However, to your point, we do need to be doing more. We do need to be doing some brand work. And it's funny because I build brands for companies every day. Like, this is my job. Like, I mean, I run an advertising company. I mean, all we do is marketing, advertising, branding, brand strategy, all this stuff. Like, I mean, this is what we sell. And to do it for myself is like the last thing on my list to do. And so, but we definitely need to improve. So, or we need to hire a consultant like Chantel.
So, I'll hack LinkedIn for you. I mean, another note real quick is that LinkedIn is so new. It's really breaking new barriers and it's not as saturated yet. So if you get in now and you get your content out there, you're in front of people who are already there for a reason, which is usually to grow and educate themselves. So it's the perfect spot to promote a podcast.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I've seen a number of podcasts that do a really good job of that, using the platform to showcase clips. One of our guests, this guy, Chris Doe, and his guys at The Future, they have, mastered this, the way they promote their stuff on LinkedIn, among other platforms. I mean, they do a really good job.
Well,
showing
it helps that they do video editing as a full-time gig.
It helps. Yeah. But I'm just saying, so they might have a leg up on us. They've got a little bit more of a production machine behind it. But at the same time, they do an amazing job of doing it. And to Chantel's point, they're using LinkedIn as a platform to it's educational videos. This is a place for people, aspiring creatives or people in agency business or whatever, folks that are in creative who would be their audience. They're marketing directly to them. They're not shotgunning Facebook where they're going to hit every random whoever. They're putting it on LinkedIn where people are there for a professional reason. They're trying to either improve their career, find new work, whatever it is. And, and I think it's a really smart place to be. Chantel, can we get into, I guess this is maybe, I don't know how long you've been doing it, so I don't know how new of ground it is for you, but I wanted to talk to you a little bit about public speaking. So I know that you have begun to frequent sort of the scene, I guess, a little bit and jumping around a little bit and doing some talks.
The scene. Nice.
In fact, I think when I connected with you, you had either just come off of or were just heading to like VidCon, I think it was, and out in California. And I don't know, public speaking is something that it feels like, at least in terms of personal branding, it's becoming kind of a necessity. Like, this is how we share that we're expert at something nowadays. It's through public speaking. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that experience of getting into public speaking, first of all, finding more gigs and how it actually works.
Okay, you're not going to believe me, but I'm going to do it anyways. So I am an extreme introvert.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, I would not even look people in the eye when talking. Walking, I would look at the ground when I walked, no matter where I was. And speaking in front of people, forget it. And in one of my college courses, I had to take a business relations class, and I had to do a speech, and I fainted. No joke. I fainted in front of my entire class, which was humiliating.
Did it get you out of the speech?
But hey, it broke some barriers because all of a sudden everyone was my friend.
Right. Well, they had to be your friend, for fear that, they didn't want to be the one that wasn't sympathetic to the poor fainting girl.
Oh, the poor fainting girl. Oh, goodness. But it wasn't until, it's like school. You go to school, you're in middle school or high school, and your grades might not be that great because you don't give a shit about what you're learning. It's not that exciting. But it's not until you really care about something that it ignites a fire in you to really burn. And it wasn't until I really found something that I'm super passionate about that I actually said, you know what, maybe I can get up in front of people. I have something to share, and knowing as well that when people come to see you speak, they're coming to see you succeed. They're coming there because they want to learn from you. They respect you, and they know that you're somebody that can teach them something. So don't feel judged. Feeling judged isn't going to help at all. And that's usually what made me freak out, is that, oh God, they're going to judge me. They're going to think I'm an idiot, But it was really, really amazing feeling like these people coming up to you afterwards, after these events, especially at VidCon, which is the world's largest video conference, people thanking me or really appreciating the fact that I open up about such a sensitive topic, which is really cool. That's usually around the advocacy and talking about branding as well. It's educational. People just want to learn.
Yeah, well, and I think, having the, opening yourself up like that and sharing a part of you that way, I think sort of ingratiates yourself with whomever you're speaking to. Automatically they feel a connection to you because you laid it on the line. And so I think that's, I hate to speak of it as a good technique, but I think that is something important, when public speaking or even just in like a one-on-one consult, to develop a strong relationship with somebody. Opening up in that way, I think is really valuable. As an extension of this public speaking stuff, you talked a little bit about how you sort of discovered your voice, which was, through advocacy and through some of these other things. But how would you coach somebody into discovering their voice? I think a lot of times people stop before they start in terms of public speaking because they don't feel like they have a fresh perspective or they don't feel like what they say matters.
Well, like in my experience, actually, I mean, like I'm a DJ. I sit in a DJ booth and I play music, and now I'm on a podcast talking about business and with business professionals. I always feel like I'm the redheaded stepchild in the corner that doesn't know anything. Right? But I mean, it's like I feel so out of place 90% of the time on this show. So I'm good for a laugh track. That's about it.
No.
So, but anyway, so I don't know if you can speak to that at all. I mean, it is kind of a deep thing, and I know it's something you consult on. So I don't expect you to go like give away the secrets or anything. But I mean, how would somebody, or can you think of a way, or do you have any pointers for somebody who might be trying to look to find how their perspective is unique versus just simply trusting themselves? Because there are plenty of people who go out there who think they have a very unique perspective and they just don't. So I mean,
it's unique. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah, it's unique. We just know we don't need it. So
I think that so that's why personal branding is such an important piece of the puzzle. It's because it helps you find out those differentiators. It helps you turn a whisper into a roar, because you can find that passion. You can find what's really important in this person's life, which will make it so easy. It'll be natural to talk about it, which makes the speaking engagements that much easier to nail down. Because when people, here's the thing about personal branding and marketing, period. It's all about authenticity. If you're going to pretend you're somebody you're not, people are going to read right through that. It's going to give a really bad vibe, and people aren't going to want you on their show. They're not going to want you speaking on stage representing a company, plain and simple. So just be yourself. You're special the way you are. Don't try to be anything you're not. People won't judge you. And hey, if they do judge you, it's their loss. They're missing out on you. They're missing out on what you can bring to the table. It's their loss, right? Just don't worry about it. That's I think the best feedback that I've ever given in my whole life was from my husband. And it was just screw him. Big biker lingo, because he was in a motorcycle club. And it really helped me understand that you really don't need to care about what people think, period. Who cares?
True.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think it might be easier said than done for a lot of people, but it's definitely true. And I think at the end of the day, I think as soon as you realize that everyone is sort of closet narcissist and they really care more about themselves than they care about you, and then you start to realize the reason I'm concerned that how people perceive me is because I'm a narcissist and I don't want people to, I don't want anybody judging me. And so I think it's important to try and go out there and sort of put that aside, and just share what you know. And so I think it's a really smart attitude, or a good way to be, is to be a little bit loose, and not be too stressed out by what people think.
Yeah.
So I guess another just quick thing to maybe get into. I think we're starting to get a little bit long, so I won't keep you too much longer. But one thing I wanted to talk about is get your take on social media. So we talked a little bit about LinkedIn as part of a social media presence, that it's an important thing. But I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about, I don't know, sort of choosing a strategy or deciding how to go forward. And obviously this is going to vary by business and things like that, whatever it is your end goal might be. But can you talk about how you would help a client navigate sort of the seas of social media, how you might advise somebody to help them make the right decisions in terms of how to move forward in social?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, you got to really dig deep into the shoes of your customers, of your target audience, because that's going to give you clarity on which channel is going to be best for your outreach. And then also stick to just 3 of those core channels. Don't stretch yourself too far, especially for small business. I think that's the biggest issue that I see is they'll automate everything against 10 different platforms or 6 different platforms, and it's noise at that point. They're not being authentic. The other piece of the puzzle, and the most important piece, is that aside from just generating content and pushing it out there, it's all about engagement, no matter where you are. If you're on Twitter, you'll see that the most successful companies that have the most successful Twitter campaign are extremely engaging on there. They'll engage with all of the comments. They'll they'll share, they'll do a lot of fun things.
How do you have the time to do all that, though? You almost need to hire like a 14-year-old girl to sit there and run your Twitter feed for you. Because,
careful. Want to make sure you have a professional.
Right?
I was going to say, Mike, that would be unauthentic.
But let me just share a story here. I logged into Twitter for the first time in the last 8 months, like a week ago, and I'm scrolling through, and there's a comment on my feed from someone who liked what I was doing at the club that night and was like, "You're killing it," and it was 3 years ago, and I saw it 2 weeks ago. So I mean, it's like I just don't have. I almost don't have time to follow Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever. Pinterest.
Yeah, well, and just imagine if you had your 14-year-old girl to help you, how authentically she'd have responded to your club.
You rock, yay! I don't know.
But that's also why it's really important to just focus, especially if you're one guy, on 1 or 2 platforms specifically. Yeah. Don't try to spread yourself too thin. Be you, and that's the only way you can do it is as yourself.
Yeah, well, and so to that point, I guess, part of that, I think, is a discipline, because I think it's quick for a lot of people to try and syndicate to a bunch of channels and things like that. Myself, I sort of narrowed down to Instagram until I realized I wasn't that interesting, and I was tired of taking pictures of my shoes and my meals and my vacations. And so I decided to sort of bag that a little bit. And so LinkedIn actually seemed like an okay place for me, and I tried to do a lot more writing and try and be a little bit more professional. But I mean, the fact of the matter is I still wear a hat crooked, and I don't know how professional I am. And so, of course, nowadays you can get away with it.
Come on.
So anyway, but to your point, I mean, basically, I had narrowed down to these couple channels where I thought I might actually be effective. In the olden days, or in my history, I have had the syndication tools, and I've published to every platform and all this stuff. And like you're saying, I mean, in order to be authentic, you can't share the same message on every platform. And so, so like with this show, for example, we use Instagram. We do syndicate to Facebook, but it's an easy syndication, and the way our post appears on Facebook is nice. So that one makes sense. And then we'll also publish on Twitter, but our stuff on Twitter doesn't look that good because we don't care, it just, but so it's not doing as well as it would be if we had, took a little time, actually crafted copy and crafted messaging for Twitter. And so I think, we could do better in that respect. But I think I don't know what I was rambling on to say, but something about basically
cricket
just,
hats, Twitter.
Yeah, no, I think I was really just trying to say she's right. Just kind of choose your channels, decide what are going to be the most effective. You don't need to feel obligated to jump on everything. I remember when Snapchat came out, that was the new one, right? And so I was like, okay, I've got to get on Snapchat too, add it to my 32 social networks, including 31 you've never heard of from foreign countries or whatever that I was syndicating to. And
dude, I still check MySpace. What are you talking about?
Oh, I miss MySpace. But nonetheless, I wasn't getting any traction off any of those other channels anyway. I was just contributing noise to the world. I wasn't actually doing anything of value. When we trimmed down and started just doing Instagram and just doing whatever the other one is, Twitter, when we narrowed it down to those two, we noticed we started getting a lot more engagement. And the reason was we were actually creating content specific for those platforms. And so it was resonating a little better. And and so I think that's a for sure way to be better with social. I don't feel the urge to blast everybody.
Do you do much with like Google Analytics, or actually follow through on like if you do post something with the link, do you actually track it, or is that not your wheelhouse?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Doing those metrics is very important. Using tools like Google Analytics, HubSpot, doing a lot of paid ads, that is amazing. I've seen so much return on that. So
on LinkedIn or Facebook or both?
Oh, so definitely Google, and then Facebook I think is very targeted because you can really target on, job title, area, yada, yada. Where you can pair that up, your targets with Facebook to your Google ads, because Google is not nearly as targeted. But if you have them paired up, they anybody in this Facebook campaign gets targeted to this paid ad campaign. Now I'm going down a total opened up a can of worms. I'm obsessed with that stuff. So it's really, there are ways to play with it and really review the analytics, but play with it.
Well,
keep that mindset.
I just signed up for it for my personal account kind of thing, just to add on to my DJ website, just to play with it. And it's cool because you can download, they give you a link that you upload on the homepage, and then Google tracks it, and you can go in and see where they clicked and what they did. And it's interesting because now it opened to, people like this one more than that. They did this, and you can actually, I'm kind of doing my own little A/B testing on what mixes I need to delete off my website.
Nice. Yeah, it's really exciting to get into that user experience.
So.
Yeah, very cool. Well, hey, Chantel, we've kept you about an hour, so let me wind this thing down a little bit. You can check out Chantel at stardustcreative.net. That's her sort of social media marketing consulting firm. You can also find her at chantelsoumis.com. We'll have links and everything in the description for this episode. So you can catch her there. Also, she's on Twitter, I think is your preferred spot, at Marcom Chantel. And you can find her on LinkedIn, obviously. That's where I found her, and it seems like a relatively good place to find her. So do check her out there. Chantel, any parting shots or anything else you'd like to say before we wrap this baby up?
Oh boy. I got one thing for the listeners to think about, and that's, how are you differently abled? What's your one big weakness that you use as a limitation for you to think about it?
I love that.
Yeah.
Cool. And great thing to go out on. So without anything else, Mike? Anything?
No, we really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, no, thanks so much again for doing this, Chantel. I was really excited to talk to you. Glad to catch up again. Hope things are well on your side of the continent. Probably getting probably colder than it is here. I mean, it's cold, but it's, I suspect always worse where you're at. So,
Yeah, but she's got the cheese. So.
Yeah, it's true. They do have
the cheese. And it's lovely to have snow during the winter, so I'm not complaining.
Perfect. All right. So without anything else, everybody, thanks for tuning in on the live stream and all that good stuff. And thanks for continuing to support this show. I promise all that stuff I said about not marketing and not caring about you is not true. We actually quite love you and are really grateful for all the people who listen and engage in our program. So thanks so much, everybody, and have a great week. We'll catch you next time.